thought I'd make a video um, about some topics that kind of brought up to me. Um, it just kind of makes me think, just because topic is about celebrities who might be involved, particularly 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson. Now, out of all the traveling and places, Las Vegas or New York, or just living homeless in hotels and just randomly just trying to fetch out my life, I wanted to make a video because when I called the taxi driver, he said 1850. And I don't know this anything. I don't believe any of this is supposed to be a surprise anymore. I really don't. I really don't believe this is a surprise. I think time has passed by too much, and I'm too old, and the friends that I used to DJ with are too old for any surprise to happen to say that we're all going to be successful as DJs, because there's hundreds of thousands of them. And none of them even did turntablism. But, I was thinking, I remember being in Las Vegas, and I remember having a few people approach me and they said, "Oh, do you got 50?" mentioning 50 Cent. And I don't know anything about 50 Cent being involved in any type of money he may be spending that has any involvement around me, my immediate family, or friends. I remember the last thing that when I talked to Bruce, he was putting a CD or a cassette tape. I know it's like cassette tape, who uses that, but he was putting in like a CD or something, like a CD changer. And that was the last conversation that I had with Bruce Myron, who died, or supposedly died. I'm so disturbed by it because I don't feel like I ever had time to mourn his death correctly. I don't feel like I had any time to mourn his life. It's just very disturbing to me. It just bothers me so much because I don't feel like he's dead. I don't feel like he died. I feel like I'm gonna, in a year from now, or when the surprise I thought was gonna happen, like, I just don't feel he's dead, like he died. And I feel like he's gonna be okay, but I thought it was important for me to talk about because it got mentioned to me a couple of times. I don't think anybody like that would ever have anything to do. It wouldn't be help me or do anything good. I don't think it would. That individual is on a scale of business and money and ventures of racism that person has experienced far beyond my understanding of any of that. It's just like Money Mayweather, Floyd Mayweather, the blacks all get together and they have their own team. And, but as far as I have anything to do with it, I don't believe there is going to be no surprise of any kind, of any DJing at all. I'm trying to be as honest as what I am to thinking of all the DJ friends that I used to hang out with. We're all old. I'm 41 years old, and I was the youngest one out of all of them. Out of Michael Rossiter, Eric Otero, Chris Martinez, who else? Andrew, who I was told that died. Andrew died of a drug overdose. I think it was 10 years ago. No, was it 10 years ago? It was a little over 10 years ago. He died about 13 years ago. And he was another friend that I knew very well. And God forbid that, I have no reason to believe anymore to think that this was some sort of surprise or fixing something. Andrew died many years ago, and that was the last of life. That everything happened. That was like he died like, I don't know if it was right before Patricia Cadena died. Patricia Cadena raped me with all these electronic devices, and it was like right before or right after. It was within a year or two of that time. So I don't know what the circumstances was to everything that's going on with this. I would be terrified if I were to think. I think I would absolutely be more terrified to know that it was some sort of surprise, and Andrew was like, I hadn't heard from him in 13 years. I remember having a conversation with him, and he was kind of like a comedian kind of person. But I wanted to talk about, because there's no reason for me to understand that any rapper, specifically 50 Cent, has anything to do with my life. I'm fucking worthless. Just like, if you can imagine how the only value that I had is that I met Michael Jackson. That's not even my value. That's the only value and attachment that they would ever want to do anything. I'm not kidding when I say this. There's probably something in the record book that says how many official registered club DJs that play trance, house, break beats, all that stuff, turntablism, was something like 500,000 in the United States, just in the U.S. That's not even counting foreign countries, just in the U.S. You're telling me out of 500,000 people, there's so many other people that have money and ventured off. It's just a very different upbringing in that whole world. It's very different, the people that I grew up DJing with, the evolution of that world drastically changed from. We caught an era during the time when it was going from analog to digital, meaning no more vinyl, it was all going digital. And so everything in the marketing and everything of how people were becoming DJs was very different. Many years ago, you had to have a lot of money to DJ. It wasn't cheap. In order to buy Technique turntables, there were $500 starting price. And that was 35 years ago. That was like when I was 15 years old, a brand new Technique turntable cost you $500. That was like the cheapest. That was like the starting price is $500. That's without needles. And back 20 years ago, when more than 25 years ago, that was 25 years ago. 25 years ago, people were making like $4.50. A minimum wage is $4.50, $5.50. So, it costs a lot of money. It's not cheap. And by the time I was like, I think I turned 20 years old, people could go to Guitar Center and purchase, you could have $300 and you could purchase an entire DJ setup. You could, for $200 you can get turntables, a mixer, headphones, you get all that stuff. When I was younger, you had to have vinyl. There was no CDs, you had to have computers, all that stuff. So there's no knowledge for any kind of reason for me to think, for any kind of fucking reason, that why would anyone want to give any kind of DJ contract to some petty drug addicts that are old out of 500,000 DJs. Like, they're going to give a contract to Eric, they're going to give a contract to Michael, they're all going to put us together or something, or whoever it is. Not only does it all, there's so much dilemma and problems between all of us. We're old, I've done a lot of drugs when I was in my teens. I didn't do very much drugs at all when I was in my 20s. I think maybe 2 or 3 times. It was outside of weed, and I wasn't smoking weed, but just maybe 4 or 5 months out of my entire 20s on a regular basis. It was only my early 20s, like the first year from 20 to 21, I smoked weed, and that was it. And I couldn't relax. I didn't like smoking weed. But in my teens, I did quite a bit amount of drugs, partying with friends and having them come over to my house and whatnot. But with Bruce, with Michael, with Eric, with a lot of different people, friends and crew, they used to all hang out with each other. But I do know that a lot of, if I thought I got sick and I thought I could die early from drugs, Bruce supposedly died. And to my understanding, did pass away. He did a tremendous amount of drugs. A lot. Like when I was strung out on, after doing drugs at times, he was continuously driving around all over the place, just doing dope. And he would then finish and go somewhere else, and he would go with Jesse. So I knew a lot of the people. Some of them I didn't know at all, but he was hanging around some people that were very dangerous, that had a lot of fucking drugs and free drugs to give. And Michael was probably at the top of the list of how much drugs there was no way anybody could take that dope away from him. I don't care who you were. I mean, there's nobody that you could not convince him. I mean, his family, there was no way. He was just going to dope himself to death. And I think a lot of his friends, not me, but they really didn't care much about his life. I'm not going to start naming names of numbers of people, but they used to just say, oh, he's just going to die of doing drugs, he just does dope, he doesn't give a shit. And it was like a joke that, but, as far as that goes, what is the expectancy of life? Like, I just got back from the dentist office. I have to have a root canal or have my tooth removed. It cost me $4,000 to get a fake tooth placed in my mouth where I have a tooth. It's like a dead tooth or just like a molar. It cost me $5,000 immediately, and this is my health. $5,000 right off the top, and I don't have the money for it. So I'm going to be eating food without a tooth. Michael Rossiter and Eric Cantero did a lot of drugs as well, a lot. You're talking taking ecstasy at raves, doing cocaine numbers of times, smoking meth or ice. Even though they all stopped that all years ago, it doesn't change the fact that how many more years before another friend dies? How many more years before all these drugs that, they caught up to me whenever, to this day, I don't think they just caught up to me. I honestly believe I had aplastic anemia before the drugs. But, they're 40 years old. People are getting heart attacks and cancer in their 40s. And they, Michael Rosser did a lot of drugs. Eric Cantero did a lot of drugs. Aaron Drew died. Bruce died. So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna make me a DJ or something like that and do a surprise, and then I die in a couple of years, or you're gonna put Michael Rossiter and Eric Cantero on a big surprise, all new turntables and DJ contracts, and travel the world? The expectancy of Michael's life is pretty terrifying to me, to think that he's bound to have some sort of cancer or a heart attack or a stroke or some type of illness, because he just didn't give a shit. In my opinion, I think he was suicidal. I think he wanted to end his life, and he was in the perfect atmosphere for everybody to feed him dope, but he's crazy. He's But, what are you going to do with the circumstances? Like, he's going to die in a couple of years, I'm going to die in a couple of years. Like, what kind of career is that? You travel, someone grants you a DJ contract and you play at these clubs and you're famous. Like, that doesn't, none of that works. Like, it seems like a very petty, a bunch of garbage to me. It doesn't seem reality in any kind of way, because there is no such thing as, I was a DJ. I wasn't. I didn't play at clubs but just a handful of times. There's no stories other than my teens and my 20s of DJing. There's no, like, all these legendary DJs and all these stories. There's none of that for me. And I just really don't think that there's anything like this. I don't know what to think that when people bring up 50 Cent because he's connected to the music, or that something like that is supposed to be granted. It would be extremely unfair to the highest level of degrees that you can't even imagine, to even give any type of DJ contracts and pay people a whole lot of money to play in parts of the world when they were selling drugs and, rapes, stealing money. I don't know what the circumstances is, but it would fall very unfortunate even out of me of the picture. It would make a lot of people jealous, in my opinion. It would make a lot of people envy and angry and jealous about everything, about what somebody else got, even when I'm not there. But I don't know. I've had several people point like I thought it was some sort of surprise. I don't think it is, in my opinion. But I don't ever see anything like that happening. How many more years does everyone have left? I'm the youngest one, so like Michael Ross is like something like 44, 45, Eric Mateo 44, 45. So is all, Martinez, all these friends that I grew up with, they're all in their mid-40s. Unless they're traveling around the world secretly and already made them into DJs or some shit, and you're lying to me on Instagram and Facebook and everything that I'm watching, I don't ever expect anything like that to happen. But Bruce did, I'm so bothered by so many things, because I don't know why they're fooling me in so many different situations aside from the electronic devices. When I go to Washington D.C. and I go to the Congress to speak to the governor, and there I see this late girl, looks exactly like Michaela, gives me the same first and last name as my biological sister, and I don't know it's my sister. In fact, I'm so much thinking to myself that I think that was Michaela Leeser, because she was flat-chested. She had real small breasts, and Michaela didn't really develop breasts. And I'm just thinking to myself, that I have so many people against me, so many things that are going on, that you don't understand how unfair this not only is for me, but I have no reason to believe this is a surprise. There's tricks here and there, but it gives me hints of it, but there's no reason. Like, why would somebody have all the money in the world? And there's really good people out there. There's people that really did a lot of good things in life, and they're musicians and they want to travel the world and play music. It takes, for me, I didn't continue it. I'm not allowed to produce music. They beat me with electronic devices. I haven't looked up music consistently since I was 21 years old. I have no practice at DJing at all. Nothing. I don't have any production at all knowledge. Nothing. And, I don't have any knowledge of that world. I don't really see anything happening other than just waiting for very likely it could be me and will be me, friends gradually die off from the drugs that we all did together and all the drinking. Not very much so drinking, but so much of the drugs that we did, because they were such hard drugs. And it's very likely that it'll be me because I've already had the sickness before, and I have more mental traumatic post disorder from the electronic devices, even if they were to stop. I don't know if I could travel and ever do a hobby. I don't think I could ever do a hobby and be normal from the electronic devices abusing me for so much and for so long, because I don't know what normal life is anymore. I don't know what it is to live in a house or live in a home. I don't know so many things, and so perpetuating horrible murders and things that happen. I got a friend of mine that got murdered and shot in the back of the head. He dies and my mother gets a house. And he was coming to my house to he dies like a year after my friend dies, and you give my mother a fucking house? This is fucking crazy. There's a lot of evil, and there's a lot of people out there that really deserve it. They did a lot of good in life. They weren't bad people. When people passed away, either through their accidental or through someone's hands, they were very respected, and that wasn't the case with my family. You're talking to you're talking to my mother's identical twin, you're talking to a group of thieves, and you're talking to a group of very monstrous actions that they were doing. And it doesn't matter if the psychologists are involved. It's a very scary thing that these people are doing, because they don't care about human life. They just care about moving their own political movement of what they want. I really don't have any idea to think that anything like that's going to happen. We're all old as shit. Everybody's old. Everybody's old. And it's just not old, but I know that I was the only one abused so horrifically that I don't think I could live. I'll always have post-traumatic disorder from the electronic devices until they stop completely, and I don't believe they ever are in my life. I have to keep searching for help. If it would ever stop, I'll never heal from it. And when I say never heal from it, right now they're shooting my left heel right now, finally. It hurts. But you don't understand. These people think that I'm just some goddamn fucking robot. They just beat me with an electronic device, and that they think that, they're trying to rewire me like I'm some kind of robot. That's what they think they're doing. And that things are just going to be just fine. No money amount in the world, no fame, nobody, nothing could say, I was tortured. The simple things you don't understand, that I can't go to a restaurant and sit down and eat. I can't cook a healthy meal. People were poisoning my food. People were grabbing food out of a trash can and serving it to me at a restaurant. People were grabbing food and throwing it into my fridge and switching it out, and getting me sick and putting poison in it. In this apartment. I was raped by a transgender. This is... Anyway, but I really don't think that, to my understanding, anything like that, it would be a very unfair situation. There's more enemies than y'all think y'all even know about, that I'm not talking about, that real bad enemies. And I wouldn't say just bad enemies, but bad people that want bad things to happen to me. That, at one time they knew who I was, that they really don't give a fuck about my life. And when you go help them, it's because you wanted them to retaliate against me even more. But I don't know. I don't know how many more years we all have left. We're all 40s, we're all old. And it's we're old, but we did a lot of drugs. That was the number one thing that's really bad. We did a lot of drugs. And when you do hard labor, you live on the streets like that, you're not likely to live a very long time because your body and your mind take so much strain. But the drugs, you know, it's like if it's not one, it's like a car, you know, you don't take care of your car, you know, the pistons break or the transmission that goes out. It's kind of like a vehicle. With the physical body, you know, you do a lot of drugs, you start having problems. You know, it is awful the things that I nearly died at Michael's house from, you know, all the situation for him trying to rape me, you know, and the paramedics showing up and abandoning me. I don't want to hear that he died. I don't want to hear, and I don't want to hear that, you know, he's in a wheelchair. I don't want to hear, you know, any of my friends that I grew up DJing with, you know, hear that he's, you know, he has a massive brain aneurysm. I don't want to hear that. But it's so likely because you don't understand how much drugs some of us did. That is very dangerous to do that amount of fucking drugs thinking that you're going to live a long time, and you're not. You know, especially me, you know, with having this disease, I really do find my life to be more guaranteed no more than 10 years. Guaranteed. I'm 41 in 6 months almost. I'll be thinking I'll be 42 years old. I'm a cancer patient, prior drug user, nearly being spit on with the most negative vibes and horrors of what these people have done to me. You know, happiness doesn't fix that. It alleviates it, doesn't fix it. You know, you still can develop likely to cancer and whatnot and diseases because of the drugs and the disease. For me, it was because of the cancers before, and I didn't know I had the disease when I was doing drugs with them. It was like doing the double amount of wear and tear on my body. But you know, what I was, you know, it's very confusing to me because nobody gives a shit. You know, I would have never been doing drugs. All the friends that I had, they could just bathe in drugs as much as they wanted because they had such leisure with their parents and money, however they were getting money. I would have never touched drugs. You know, in my teens, not the way that I did. I didn't have no family. My mother was not in the fucking picture, you know, like whoever it is that bought her a house and did all this other shit, they kicked me out of her life and my father's life long ago. I was worthless. And it's because my mother was in a total desperation for her own life. And they knew they did this on purpose. There's no fixing that. They're going to try to justify it and give reasons. My mother has a first grade education. You know, I'm the only straight child. All of them are gay. All the fucking boys that she has are fucking gay, except for me. I'm the only straight one son that she has. They're all fucking gay. That means they all fucking, you know, Frankie's gay, Julie and his twin are gay, Marco and his twin are fucking gay. You know, it's, these motherfuckers, it's hard because it's so abusive, you know. Nobody gives a shit about what they did to this whole man because even if you threw me out of the picture, my father wouldn't have wanted that. He would not have wanted some total fucking identical twin posing as my fucking mother to steal and justify his goddamn fucking life. Had no right to fucking do that. Nobody wants to believe how many times my father did not want any of his money and his assets or his investment in life to go to some fucking total stranger, let alone my mother. No, 100% went to her, and you know, and that's between the lawyers and the people that bought her the house, the car, and all this other shit. And Sarah and Ken, you know, they took ownership. They own the tombstone. They paid for it. So I don't know why people think that. As you know, it's I can't be. I look on some of these people Instagrams and people's Facebooks, and some of these celebrities are just, and they're all gay. All the ones that are, they're homosexuals, just death wishes, and they're in prison. They're in prison themselves because they have so many homosexuals that run this fucking chaos of shit, and they're running the political games and because of racism, because for the blacks, and it's a. But I have no reason to believe, you know. It's so confusing. It's like I knew this guy named Andrew, and I DJ'd with him, and he died. Nobody ever really talked about him. You know, he was part of the crew of DJs. That Bruce was probably the closest one that I had with DJing that died, and he is the closest one. And I don't know. Whatever it is that's going on it's I have no reason that somebody's going to be spending their money like that to do anything good. Why did these other DJs that you never heard of, they want a DJ contract, you're going to give them a lot of money to get a contract? I don't know. I'm still pondering whether Bruce is alive, and I don't feel like I was able to mourn, and I was even being skeptical about the whole thing about Andrew as well. Did Andrew die too? Did Andrew pass away? I have another friend, Kevin, and he got cancer. He got lung cancer. He had some of his lung removed, and all of a sudden, like 10 years later, he has a massive stroke. He has a massive stroke, and he's in a full-time caring facility, to my understanding. He was a DJ. He played music. You're going to give all these other people DJ contracts and make it unfair for everybody, and how they're going to get money and fame? I just don't understand how any of that, because it's like giving free money away. And even if you don't give free money away, where the individuals are making free money, however they got there was a very bad, very bad ways. Some of them were very fucking bad, but I don't know. It's sad because we're all getting old. We're all old and thinking, I don't want to hear about, oh, this friend died and we had some good times when we were young. We all knew each other very young, and you talked to each other. It just seems like we're all waiting each other who's going to die next. Stop. It very much feels like, who's going to die next? Drugs. A mother or father dies. Kathy passes away. Jack gets cancer. I never know. I really feel that I feel much more older. My body feels decayed, much more older than any of them, and I think it has to do with the cancer, and the transplant, and sleeping on the streets and being so abused. Now I'm having a molar tooth and I don't have money for it, and this goes to show you, I just spent almost a full year here, and like that, they sabotage me. They won't let me go to the dentist whenever I'm calling them, and they can't fix it with filling anymore. They can't put the cement on the filling. They can't put the cement on there so that they don't have a root canal. Like that, it's gone. It costs $4,000 to $5,000 to, after having it pulled, to put a fake tooth there so that I can eat and chew on food correctly. I don't have the money for it. And like that, they sabotage me. $4,000 or $5,000. Let me tell you, when they towed my car, my car value, I had paid $2,000 for a new transmission and babied the car. So it was worth about $5,000 when they towed it. So when they towed my car and they put it in the impound, that car, I was already paid for it. They stole $5,000 from me, and I still owed money at the police department, and I was sitting in jail for like a whole week for like $1,500 pay. I was sitting in jail for 10 days. For 10 days, I was in jail. They took $5,000 from me like that, and they sabotaged me. They wouldn't let me have a job. My mother showed up at least on 2 separate occasions to pull my car out of the impound. My mother's twin, not my mother, but my mother's twin. Which I didn't know who was giving her the money. And I was like, oh, let me money. And I paid her back, but you know, I'd pay $1,000 one day, and it was like my tax return. And then it turns out my taxes, they sent me more money I should have. Like, none of this, they just took $5,000 from me like that. They just wasted me. That was my dad's funeral money. That's what I worked for. And they took it away from me. Now, I can't even go to the fucking dentist because they're tapping my phone and doing this shit to me. And I was trying to go to the dentist so they could fix it and do the filling. Now they have to pull out the entire fucking tooth because it's decaying. They can't fix it. So they're, you know, playing this whole death wish on me, but it costs $4,000 or $5,000 to put a implant, a fake implant tooth in, just like a normal tooth. There's 2 options, they told me. A root canal, which is like kind of like surgery. It's a dead tooth, but they fix it. And it's like, and it's like $4,000. They said it was like, you're gonna pay like $4,000. That's what, you know, I think they said, what was it, like a couple thousand? Out of pocket was like, I think a root canal, they said, was like, what did they say it was, 1,500 or 2,000? I don't even remember. And an implant was about 4,000. So I have to come up with this money, the root canal, and I don't have the money for it. So they just have to pull it out. So hopefully I'm going to come up with $4,000 or $5,000 to come up with for an implant. So I can eat food comfortably. With all the teeth I'm supposed to use to eat food, because I know that when I'm homeless, it's going to make it that much more treacherous and bad and uncomfortable. Like that, they just steal my money. All the projects I worked on, they just stole my money. They shoot me, beat me, tell me what I can put on there, what I can't put on there. Model ships. All my money that I'm spending, I'm not really doing much for myself at all. Then buy a brand new pair of shoes once a year and get something to eat, to feed myself. I buy one phone a year. People buy, nowadays, every 6 months they're buying all these phones and gadgets and shit. I really don't, you know, get fancy haircuts, go to spas, nothing. I don't get to work, good jobs, education, and get anything in life. But I do know that, you know, it just shows how much control they have over my finances like this. They're so detailed. They know that my filling is perfectly fine on the left side, but on the right side it's not. It fucking completely they said that the filling fucking broke off somehow, some way. And they're not helping me. I was 9 months ago, if they had told me, okay, we got an appointment, come in 3 weeks. Come tomorrow, we'll have an appointment. I would have been able to pay, my filling would have been paid through my insurance, and they could have saved my tooth. But they wouldn't let me in any of the city of St. Albans. They didn't let me in Swanton, and nowhere. So what happens, and this is on top of being beaten the fuck out of electronic devices where I can't take care of myself, where I become hesitant and forget and all this other shit because they're just beating me and I can't pay attention to taking care of myself and do what I'm supposed to do. And they're sabotaging me this way. 9 months ago, I would have gone and visited, they would have filled it, fixed it, and I would have left, taking care of my health. I can't, because all of a sudden, they tell me I have to wait from June, it's almost a full fucking year. Have you ever heard of a dentist office to say you have to wait 10 months before you can come into our visit with your insurance because there's nothing available and it's so busy in a town that has like 7,000 people, and not even 7,000, in a city that probably has like 4,000 people. I'm gonna say like 4,000 people. You're telling me that there's a clinic with all these dentists and like 10 chairs and these dentist chairs that people are there for, and you're telling me that you have to wait 10 months before there's anything available? You're fucking lying to me. You're sabotaging me because you don't want to take care of my health until now you put me in foreign debt. Until you want to physically harm me. That's what you're doing. I fucking made the phone calls. I'm doing what I can. They are not letting me go to the fucking dentist. That's now cost me $4,000 or $5,000. A root canal is $1,500, but I have to stay. They said past June to get it all procedurally done. I have to call them to see how much it was for a root canal, but it was at least $1,500. I leave here in June. This is 3 months. It costs at least $1,500 to do a root canal. That's the only way. That's to save the tooth, but it's dead. They said the tooth is dead, but the root canal is officially dead, but they saved the tooth, and it's not actually a filling. It's my real tooth is just no longer alive because they have nerves at the gums of the teeth. But I was trying to get braces. I was dreaming that maybe I could get braces at 40 fucking years old, at 35 years old, but I could never have money because they kept on kicking me out and beating me with these electronic devices. So I could smile more and be happy more in life. They won't let me.